Apple just released the first beta of iPadOS 27, and today we're going to install it on our M5 iPad Pro. We're going to see what it's like, what works, what doesn't work, as well as whether or not you should install it. So let's get started. Now, first and foremost, iPadOS 27 is available to registered developers. In order to install it on your device, you need to be a registered developer through Apple's developer program. Otherwise, you can install the public beta when it's available in July. Now, we'll start with what's new with Siri AI. First and foremost, the way that you pull down and interact with Siri is just super duper cool. It is like just an amazing interaction. Same thing here. We want to go ahead and pull down. If you pull down and hold, how it looks like that. Very cool. Works from any direction. Now, let's just go ahead and start with an interaction. What is the lineup for Lollapalooza this year? So can you remind me to send a message to my wife at 4 p.m. today? Do you want to go to Lollapalooza?
About going to Lollapalooza.
And if I want to, I can just pull down on this and that'll expand. Then I can type to her if I wanted to. But let's say we're done here. And it actually brings me into the dedicated Siri app. Here it sees all the results. It shows the rich results with all the pictures. If I wanted to, I could tap into one of these pictures, make it larger. It'll show any references here. So if I want to click on that, where it got the information from. Now, if you're paying close attention, you notice that Siri does sound different. And if we go into settings and we go into Siri, here we see that there's the Expressive Voices preview. This actually sounds, it's worded differently on the iPhone, but here on the iPad, we can turn this on and this gives us the audio preview of what the new Siri sounds like. Here we see the different voices.
Hi, let's find the right voice for you. I'll practice some things I like to say while you listen. Let me try this one out. You have one new message. Here's another one. Your timer is set for 1 minute.
Now, there are only 2 different voices available now. It's only available in US English. And there are some sliders that you could adjust how quickly it speaks and the cadence, which you won't be able to change right now, but you will be able to change in the future. If we look at the app settings, we have the options to open to conversations, open to new conversations. All right. And then the history of how long the chats or the requests will stay in there. Now, one of the things I am disappointed in not seeing at this point in the beta is that there is no widget for the Siri app. You basically cannot launch that other than by going into the app itself. So there's no widgets that you could have on the home screen or even on the lock screen. That would be great if it's there, but I guess you're using like an interaction of either hitting the sleep wake button or by actually pulling down from the menu. So I don't know, we'll see if they add it during the beta. Now, assuming that you've downloaded the beta on your device, you'll have to enroll to have access to the new Siri. And here you do that, you'd go into settings, you go to Siri, and then here where it says Siri beta, you're actually going to see an option to get enrolled in the preview or join waitlist. Depending on how long or how many people are in there, it might take a little bit longer time. Now, in terms of how long it took to get access to the Siri beta, I downloaded iPadOS 27 on Monday at 3 p.m. and I got access to it roughly about 24 or 25 hours later, so Tuesday afternoon. So at that point, it was around just about a day. I've heard some people still waiting 24 to 36 hours later. So if you are signing up for it, know that it can take a long time. If it's taken longer than that, let me know how long you've been waiting down in the comments below. Now, if we look at extensions, here it says ChatGPT. The understanding is that you'll be able to add different model extensions into here other than just ChatGPT. And it's not enabled right now, but it should work in the near future or as the beta progresses. Next, let's move on to iPadOS 27's design, starting with the lock screen. We see here that the home screen has got a little bit of a redesign to it. So we're looking at the clock, and here we can have the clock either normal, right, here with this dynamic sizing, or we can choose to put the clock in the top bar. And I would suspect that's going to be so you can actually have a wallpaper that's nice and focused without having the distraction of the time on there. Other than that, there are some new wallpapers that Apple has. And whoops, click that one, click here. All right, here are the different iPad wallpapers that come part of iPadOS 27. And in portrait mode, you can tell that this is the number 2 and this is the number 7. So it's actually kind of cool the way they have that. So here we see the same options, and you'll see that depending on the time, This number 7 will actually move up and down. So it might shrink or expand. Now we also can have the clock move up to the bar here, which is, I don't know what actually they call this, but move up to the date bar. And you can still choose to customize the bar. And let's see if we can still hide the clock. Boom. You can. You obviously lose the ability to change the sizing of the clock and the font weight, the transparency of it, right? Still a little glitchy, you could tell that. And we can actually change the color of the wallpaper day or night. So this is a dynamic wallpaper, but if I go to one of the colors, here's the colors, and I go here, now I can just change that to a solid color. Ooh, that looks pretty slick. That looks very slick, actually. You can change the mix of it. If you had a custom color code or a hex code, you could add that on here. And all this can be done with a pencil. I'm just using my finger right now. But there we go, that's done. Now, in terms of widgets, I've not found any new widgets at this stage of the beta. There are widgets on iOS 27 that do not exist on iPadOS 27, like the calendar widget, which has been like supersized more or less, which would look really good on a folding phone if they were doing that. But I'll keep posting that to Threads. So if you like this kind of stuff, if you want to get more kind of the insider stuff as it comes out, follow me on Threads. Let's look at some of the other transparency features here. So if we go into the search bar and we type in liquid, which is under appearance. It's kind of hard to see here when you have this like this way. Keep your focus right here. And we're going to go from not transparent at all to transparent. All right, so that's how that works. We have resizable iPhone apps that can be moved, resized, carried over. Apple has redesigned or updated all the apps to just have a little bit more character than they had before in iPadOS 26. You see, there's just a subtle difference between, there's more depth. That's the way that I think of it. Like the mail icon in the center actually is raised a little bit more than it was previously. And all these apps kind of have that same depth effect applied to it. I haven't seen any that don't have it yet, but I would imagine that we're going to come across them. And these apps are probably going to change here over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks as we progress through the beta. Now, one thing I want to show you here, if we look at the home screen, if we're going to change any of the icons, there are 2 new buttons. There is a backwards and a forwards design. So let's just say I change my apps and I go to customize, and I'm going to go to clear widgets, which actually looks super dope. I love the way that it looks. It's not really changed. Maybe it's a little bit more refined, but it's not something that is, immediately perceivable when you're messing with it. So, and let's say I'm going to go here and I'm going to make all the app icons big, which is a nice clean look. But you know what? I probably don't want. I think I want to go back one step and go back to the colored apps or to the light apps, which look nice. Let's see here. I can go back. How far does that history go? Let's go. We're going to go back here. Oh yeah, see? It goes through all the apps I just added to the home screen. The button's not working that great right now, but that's probably something again which will progress throughout the beta. All right, let's look at some of the redesigns coming to the apps themselves. So here, the sidebar is more opaque, and as the content goes underneath, you could see right here how it refracts the album art. This is actually a very cool detail. Let's see if we can put it in light mode and see how it changes. Sorry if that got super bright for you on camera. Same thing. It's a very, very cool detail. All right, let's go to an app like Files. One of the things that Apple talked about in the keynote was how many of their underlying systems have been rebuilt, and that resulting in improvements in things that we do every day, file transfers, networking, AirDrop. So let's see if we can test out AirDrop. So we're going to try an AirDrop from my iPhone 17 Pro to my iPad Pro M5. That seemed pretty quick, but let's actually see if we can do a larger file. All right, so here we're going to open up the disk speed test, and how much improved are the file transfer speeds? I've got a USB 4 drive here. This USB 4 drive is getting speeds of roughly 3,000 megabytes per second for writing and roughly 1,500 megabytes per second or 1,450 megabytes per second for reading, which is pretty good. Let's take a look here at actually the internal drive. So we have 2,800 megabytes per second for write and 2,300 megabytes for read. All right, so let's go here. I'm going to take this Mac Studio desktop. Let me make sure I'm on the right drive. Click here. I'm going to click on Mac Studio Backup. And I'm going to bring it to right here on my iPad. And it's doing 40 gigs in roughly 46, 42. I'm sorry, it's 100 gigs, about 93 gigs. And it's a copy. So that seems pretty fast. Now, one of the things that Apple is touting is that apps are launching 30% faster. In my testing, I haven't really been able to see that they launch fast. Again, I am using one of the newer iPads. So it might be something that's really only perceivable or noticeable on older iPads. If you've already installed the beta on an older iPad, let me know what you're experiencing in terms of app launching. But I think that's something that will probably be more noticeable as we get closer and closer to the actual release date. All right, so now we're just recording a video of how fast, to test how fast the video will appear in the library. And right now we're gonna give it about 5 more seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 10-second video, and you can see there it is. It's already there in the preview thumbnail. And it even loads pretty quick. That's actually very cool. So you'll definitely notice an improvement there with that. Now, one of the things that Apple talked about with this new AI model that they have is that unless you have an iPad that has at least 12 gigs of RAM, that you will not be able to run the newest model. And the newest model that they're talking about here is going to be the one that's on device for with these expressive previews. So if your iPad, if you have an M4 iPad that was a base level iPad, you will not be able to run that device on model. That doesn't mean that you can't run it, but you'll have to be running it in the mix of in the cloud and inside of on the device. So because it has too many parameters, just because it's too heavy of a model, you won't be able to run it there. It's not until you actually have 12 gigs of RAM or higher. And that would mean it's the M4 iPad Air and the M5 iPad Pro. And let's see here, let's take a look at the image playground. Make a photorealistic image of me at a World Cup soccer match. Wow, that's totally not me though. That is super funny. So this isn't working for me right now. I've tried a few different image styles, a few different photos of me, and I keep getting the same result. So we'll just chalk it up to it not working this earlier in the beta. But let's actually go to Photos and let's demonstrate what it looks like to edit the images. Now there are 3 new tools inside of Photos. So first we're gonna have, if we click on, this is the raw photo actually. So right here, the tag, it won't work on raw photos because it needs to have some image data. And I think that might be this one. Yeah, portrait. So you can see here, this is a portrait photo because the background's got some bokeh to it. I'm gonna click on edit here. And I'm gonna click on tools. And here we have cleanup, which was there before. We have extend and we have reframe. So let's first click on cleanup and we're just gonna remove this person. There you go. Now I noticed that it selected this area in between your legs there. That may or may not be the best thing, and I kind of fat fingered my swipe there. The first few times I did this, it took a good 30 seconds. Oh wow, actually look at that. Objects in your scene. So if I click on, that actually looks pretty good. And the only artifact, come on, this is the bad thing about using your fingers to pinch and zoom, I always find is that, and if we look here, the only artifact that she was there are these footprints. I don't see anything. Oh, actually, you know, there's a little bit here of his whatchamacallit. Either way, so it's a pretty good job for very first beta of this. Now I'm gonna click on extend. I want to say I want to make the photo larger. I'm gonna click on extend, and it's gonna visually extend the photo. And it extended the photo just like how it was supposed to. Now let's click on reframe. If you look here, these are yellow, showing that those are the edits that you've done. If I click on reframe, this is actually kind of wild. But I can take a different photo, or I can move the photo around. There you can't see his legs. There, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so maybe that's the angle I had to be at, which is essentially the same frame that I had in the first place. So it shows, if you hold on it, if you press, it shows the original image with all of the edits then removed. Very cool. And the last thing is going to be Flyover. So map data got a huge update in iPadOS 27 for Flyover. And Flyover is Apple's product where they allow you to essentially fly over a city and be able to interact with it in a gesture-based way. And so just the level of detail that they're getting in these maps is super duper cool. And what's cool about Flyover is that Flyover gives you the ability to travel to cities and experience them when you physically don't have the ability to do so. So you can experience New York from your iPad in tremendous detail, which is an option that I think just from an education standpoint is always good for people to get a little bit larger of a perspective. What is the verdict on iPadOS 27 Beta 1? Should you install it? So I'd say that unless you are a developer or unless you have you like having like your tinker like I am, or you want to just see what the latest thing is, I would say that no, it's not. I would at least wait till the next beta. I have it on my primary device, but I'm someone who's used to reformatting my device, 10 times a year. And if that's not you, I would say I'd hold off at least until the next beta or until the public beta, which is going to be in July. Now, all those things those betas will be reviewed. So make sure you get subscribed if you want to learn more about that. And I am producing my iPadOS and iOS setup guides. It's going to be the first link in the description if you want to get notified when that comes out. That should be when the public beta drops. It should be right around that time frame. But I want to know what you think. Are you installing the beta? Are you ready for it? Are you brave? Let me know down in the comments below. My name is Mike. Guys, I will talk to you in the next one.